Hello, my name is Suddhaka, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a rather strange word that you may not have heard before. But in Buddhism, we have a word called prapunca. This is a Pali word, and it means, the translation is something like mental proliferation. And what it refers to is the way that our mind is constantly spinning stories about what's going on. So if we meditate, we'll notice that one thought will pop up, and then fairly quickly another couple of thoughts will pop up that are associated with that thought. And you'll get a whole train of thought starting up that's taking your mind down all these different alleyways and tracks. And very often this whole process is completely outside of our control. So we'll be meditating and we'll just suddenly, as it were, wake up and find that we're in the middle of a very, very long and complicated train of thought about a situation with all sorts of different ramifications and speculations and so on. And our mind just feels incredibly busy, and we don't know how we got there. It just seems to have happened completely automatically without any prior control or premeditation. So yeah, this is what we call prapunca. It's the tendency of our mind, you could say, to go on automatic pilot and just generate a whole bunch of sort of random ideas and storylines. And of course this can be a real problem. I mean, if we have a tendency towards anxiety, or if we have a tendency towards low self-esteem, this process of prapunca takes us down some very familiar and very negative and destructive grooves in our own mind. So we'll find ourselves coming back again and again to worrying about situations where we don't feel good about ourselves, or anticipating things happening in a bad way that we can't do anything about, and so on. So this prapunca causes us a huge amount of problems. And one of the great things about mindfulness practice is that it gives us a creative tool to work with this tendency of the mind. And I think that meditation or mindfulness, I mean, just to give an image, it's a little bit like our desk. Our desk at work is really, really cluttered. We've got all this sort of stuff on it, all sorts of files and books and pieces of broken computer equipment. And so we can't get down to any work. We can't actually do anything. We can't do anything creative because our mind is so cluttered up with all of this sort of stuff. And, if we're leading a busy life, we can often feel like our minds are like a kind of crowded room where there's no space for us to think. There's no space for us to really experience what's going on moment by moment. Just because we've got so much stuff going on in our minds feel so busy and cluttered. So this process of mindfulness practice, it's a little bit like clearing a space. We clear all the rubbish off our desk. We clear a space so that we can put whatever we want to put into the main focus of our attention. And so with mindfulness practice, we're looking at where our attention is moment by moment, and we're deliberately withdrawing the focus of our attention from all of that prapunca, all of those little bits of thoughts that just come into our minds and clutter our minds up. So hopefully through mindfulness practice, and if we stay with it, our minds can become calm and clear. Our minds can become like a clear space in which we can start to pay attention to whatever's really most important to us. Because I guess that's the thing about prapunca, is it fills our minds with stuff that really isn't important. We spend our lives worrying about minutiae, and in that process we lose the main things that are of value in our lives. So by working with mindfulness, by withdrawing the focus of our attention from these thoughts, these minutiae thoughts, we can start to focus on what we really value and what we really want in this life. And that's a really marvellous gift of meditation practice.